Hey, how are ya? Poseidon Racing here with another Photo Finish Live YouTube video. In this video, we're going to look at some breeding patterns. The majority of these videos on this channel will be breeding based because that is my role within Poseidon Racing, is to make the majority of the breeding decisions. And a little bit of background on that. For the first 6, 8, 10 breeding seasons, we were specifically focused on grade jumping, and that was just trying to get our horses up the grades as quickly as possible. But in the last couple of seasons, we have switched our focus to aligning the substats for optimal racing horses. Okay, and this should, if I'm getting this right, and don't take anything I say on here as any sort of financial advice, but if I do get this right, we should see, or should start to produce, a higher level of races, potentially than what we have been producing previously. We'll see how we go. Hopefully we're successful. But what I've been doing is a whole bunch of study, and I'll run you through some of the different points that I've found that I think can give us an advantage in breeding racing horses in particular. Okay, so here we go here. I've got a really interesting set of stats from aipaddock.com, as in AI, paddock, my horse is out in the paddock.com. All right, look that up. There's a lot of great information here. This is a really beautiful chart that highlights, or seemingly highlights, a correlation between high substats and preferred racing distances. All right, so what I mean by that is if we look at start here, for example, let's imagine you've got an S- horse, raced and retired that horse. You can now see the substats: start, speed, stamina, finish, heart, temper. And you can see that your start substat is, say, an S+, and all the rest of those stats are like S- or A+ or something like that. So the highest substat is start. That would, according to this chart here, would correlate to that horse most likely being strongest at 4 furlongs, 5 and 6 furlongs. You can see here it's run its fastest times. And I imagine these are ranked times because, you know, that would make sense when it gets down to sort of 12, 11 furlongs, that we're not obviously relating the fastest times to, you know, 4 versus 12 or something silly like that. We're relating them to the rankings within the entire ecosystem, I imagine. Not 100% sure, but the correlation here seems to suggest, and it also fits with what I've been studying, that start correlates to breeding sprinters in particular. Okay, you can see that quite strongly there, with 4 furlongs being the highest at 26%, then 5 at 23%, 6 at 20%, and if we go all the way down to the other end, that start almost doesn't correlate at all, or almost has a negative effect, which I'm sure it doesn't. But if you have a high start substat, then it's less than 1% chance that you're going that horse is going to be running its best races at 11 or 12 furlongs. All right, so that's really interesting how that high start substat correlates to being more than likely a sprinter. All right, and then if we come down to speed, and it's interesting the way those stats line up in the graphic on Photo Finish. It goes start, speed, stamina, finish, and those high substats almost directly correlate to the distances as well. If we imagine that start directly correlates to 4 and 5 furlongs, the shorter ones, and then speed looks to sort of correlate to 4, 5, 6 and 7. But if we were just to sort of generalize that and say start is really important for 4 and 5, speed is really important for 6 and 7, and then as we come down, stamina here, where are we, seems to be strongest at 8 and 9, and then finish here is strongest at 11 and 12. Now, finish and start are really specific and really strong. As in, as I said, start was up 27% there, in running best races at 4s and 23% at 5. So roughly 50% of the horses that have that high start stat are going to be strongest in the sprint races. And then if we come to finish, it's almost exactly the same. Roughly 50% of those horses will be running their strongest races at 11 and 12. Whereas when we go into those middle stats of speed and stamina, it's not as quite as clear and not quite as strong. You can see speed here does have its strongest correlation seemingly to 6 furlongs, but 7 is almost equal. 5 is almost equal as well, and to be honest, 4 is almost equal as well. It does drop between 7 and 8 quite dramatically, and then keep dropping dramatically down until you get to 12 in the case of speed. Okay, and then stamina is much the same. It's strongest around 7 and 8, but there's not a lot of difference between, it's strongest between 8 and 9, but there's not a lot of difference between 10, 11, 12 also. So stamina looks to be important for your high mid runners, 8 and 9, but also looks to be important in adding that to your 10, 11, 12 runners as well. All right, so that's really, really interesting, the way that sort of correlates, that, you know, speed start sort of sits at your 4, 5, speed at your 6, 7, stamina at your 8, 9, finish at your 10, 11, 12. Well, it doesn't directly correlate there, does it? Because the numbers aren't even. So finish is more your 11, 12. But hopefully you get what I mean there. Now, that kind of matches up to what I've been trying to do with my recent breeding over the last 2 seasons, and that is to take horses, or my mares in particular, that already have a high substat in, say, start or speed, and trying to match them up with colts, or studs, that have similar high start, high speed, and create those sprinters. And same on the other end of the scale of taking my mares, which already have maybe a high substat in stamina or finish, and trying to boost that up or complement that with a stud that has a similar high substat in stamina and finish. Okay, trying to sort of customize those substats with how I breed my horses, so that I give myself the best chance of getting these optimal combinations of substats. Now, speaking of optimal combinations of substats, we looked at those individual substats, as in speed. We skipped temper and heart, so it was start, speed, stamina and finish. But what I've been liking to do is trying to combine like start and speed together. So trying to get high stats. So again, let's say we've got an S minus. I'll try and get my start and speed up to sort of S plus S, and then stamina and finish sort of down around S minus A plus, maybe a little bit of heart on there as well, I quite like, to create the ultimate sprinter, if you like. Does the ultimate sprinter sort of look something like, let's say we got an S minus and we've got S plus start, S plus speed, A or A plus stamina, A or A plus finish, S plus heart. Does it look something like that? I'm not sure. Maybe, maybe not. But we need to develop these sort of, I guess, plans of what we think makes the ultimate sprinter, and then work towards that over a couple of seasons, which is what I'm doing now. So I am definitely looking towards, you know, creating these customized substats where I've got standout speed, standout start, standout speed to create the optimal sprinter, and standout finish, standout stamina to create the optimal 11-12 runner. All right, and if we look at that, those two combinations in particular, where are we? So start speed here. So you remember, we look at just straight up start, which we looked at in the beginning, was around 27%. You can see by adding start and speed together, it bumps that up to 28%. And then as we come across to the 5, that was 23 with just start. That bumps up to nearly 26. So you're getting this slight improvement, sort of bumping up. And there's probably not enough data here, but you know, to manipulate those other stats like start speed and heart, is that one there? It may not be. No, there was probably not enough data to produce that, but maybe start speed and heart together, or is there start, oh, we got start speed finish. No, that doesn't necessarily help. Yeah, have a look at this chart yourself, but definitely for me, start and speed together is an improvement over start alone and seems to make a horse that's more consistent all the way out to 6 furlongs at 23.4%, okay? So for me, that's exactly what I'm looking at, is trying to combine these certain substat pairs that, in my mind, create optimal races at specific distances. And then if we look at start finish, which seem to be the two that correlate mostly towards your 11-12 runners, all right, so finish alone was 26.5. Stamina, did I say start and finish? Stamina and finish is the combination we're looking at. Stamina and finish is exactly the same almost, 26.6. And then at 11, it was 23% with finish alone. That bumps up to almost 26. So that's a nice 10% improvement there or so. And then if we look at finish alone for 10 was almost 14%, and that bumps up to 16%, so an extra couple of percent there. So it may not look like much when it comes to adding in that complementary substat, as in adding stamina to finish or adding speed to start. But I think it's probably creating stronger races at those distances, and potentially also creating races that are a little bit more versatile. Whereas your finish alone might be 11-12 furlongs. Add in that stamina and you might be able to go into sort of your 9, 10, 11, 12 furlongs, something like that. All right. So jump in, have a look at those stats. Creating mid-runners, I really have no idea yet. You can have a look at this chart. It's a little bit sort of not really any standouts. Maybe speed and stamina contribute to that. I'm not 100% sure on that. But you can also jump over to, if we jump over to photofinish.live, and remember, if you're going to sign up to photofinish.live, I'll leave the link to my referral code in the comments below or in the description below, and sign up, verify, then get in touch with me on Twitter at Poseidon Racing, one word, and I will send you out a free colt. And then once you hit 20 paid races, I'll also send you out a free filly, which will be awesome to get your breeding started. But if we jump over here, we can also do a little bit of research. Where we are, we're on the stats tab in the menu, then horses. Jump over here to filters. I like doing my research around the sort of S-. It's not going to let me, is it? Around sort of the S-. We might be better off doing that research over at gapdata.racing. Gap Data, love this site. Menu, Power BI. We're going to click all horses here. And what I want to see is if we can find these patterns in some of the best horses in the game. Okay, all horses. Let's go to grade S-. I like S-, as I said, because if we were to go to S+, for example, often just the highest graded horse does really well in S+, but in S-, you've got the full range, the full gamut of substats. So it really shows you, really highlights what horses are doing well and shows you those patterns. Okay, so S-, we're going to double click on profit and loss so they align with the most profitable. And then we're going to look at retired horses. So if we look at days here, according to Gap Data, Days is the best S- horse to hit the tracks as far as profitability is concerned. And you can see tempo really, really low, but then really high start speed, finish and heart. All right, so start speed, finish being high. Interesting. If we go to those charts, I would expect the start and speed to influence the sort of 5-6 region of racing. But then maybe finish gives it a consistency where it can win much, much wider than that. Maybe out 6, 7, 8. Let's have a look at the charts and see if we can see anything. Very good at 5, 6. So anything above the sort of box graph here is really, really good. So good at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not too much running at 9 or 10, but looks like it's pretty decent out there too. So there you go. That sort of lines up with what we've learned, doesn't it? If we go back and click on the next retired horse being Lynch. Yeah, okay. This looks like a sprinter as well, doesn't it? The heart's low, okay? But we've got the high substat in start, speed, stamina. All right, so the start and speed should lend itself to being short. Stamina might give it a little bit more edge around the 6, 7s. So I imagine this horse is probably really good at 4, 5, 6, 7 charts. 4, 5, 6 wasn't really run at 7, but the one race it had at 7 looks to be pretty good. It's lining up nicely with our data. Back to gapdata.racing. Let's do another couple here. Knight Saturn. I'm not going to go to Knight Saturn because that's one of the earlier horses, and although it's a phenomenal horse, it wasn't really running up against other optimal breeded horses. So we want to look at something that's a little older, potentially. And maybe the first two weren't there as well, but I don't know those horses as well. All right, so another great horse here, and you can see really high substat in start. We know from that previous graph we looked at that that should optimize it as a sprinter. All right, and there's no other high substats except the heart, which gives it a little bit more fighting quality. What do the charts say? Is this like just a dominant 4-5? Or does the heart help it be a little bit better at some of the other races as well? Yeah, 4, 5, 6, nice. Let's do one more. Yeah, let's do this one. Oh, there's one there that's been bred from one of my horses. I need to look at that, definitely. All right, so this one doesn't fit the patterns that I am kind of looking for, and that's rather interesting in itself. So you can see it's got the standout stamina and standout temper. Now, does that having just the straight standout stamina lend itself to being like a 8, 9, 10 range? Let's have a look. Run almost predominantly at 10. Okay, cool. As I said, I spotted one that was, in fact, bred by myself. I can't really claim this because in the early days, we were just smashing breeds together to try and get up the grades. But you can see this one is two of my horses, Cyberpunk with Luna. Similar to the last horse we looked at, it's picked up the main standout subgrade as stamina with heart going along with that. So I would expect this to be 9, 10, 11-ish. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's pretty good. Interestingly, quite good at 12 and quite good at 10. Reasonable at 9, reasonable at 8. All right? So that's really that. And that's, I suppose, trying to customize your breeding to optimize those substats to fit those particular patterns that you think will create the best, 4-5 furlong racer, 11-12 furlong racer, or maybe you'll be the first person to really optimize that sort of 7, 8, 9 mid-runner racer. All right? Thanks for watching along. See you next time. Bye for now.